Good evening and welcome to the Best AFT Meet Our Candidates Forum. We'd like to thank everyone for making it out here this evening. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy work week to be here with us. Just a general reminder, before we get started, we ask that everyone silence their cell phones and refrain from chatting so that our candidates can clearly hear the questions being asked of them. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic on to our PAC committee co-chairs, Mrs. Esmeralda Garcia Barajas and Mr. Jorge Jasso, who are the moderators for this evening's event. Let's welcome them with a round of applause.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Esmeralda Garcia Barajas, and I am one of the PAC co-chairs. Thank you all for being here today.
Good evening. My name is Jorge Jasso. I'm one of the other PAC co-chair.
Before I begin, I'm also going to introduce the rest. I'm going to introduce the rest of our PAC committee, and we have Lázaro Cárdenas from Porter High School, Denise Garcia, who I believe is not here yet, from El Jardín Elementary, Ms. Deborah Hill from Garcia Middle School, and Ms. Hill will also be our timekeeper tonight. We also have Gracie Moreno Lira from Del Castillo Elementary, who I think is not here yet, and Celia Sai Skinner from Skinner Elementary. Welcome, everyone. Like I said, my name is Esmeralda Garcia Barajas, and I thank you for being present today at this forum today with our Best AFT endorsed candidates. Thank you for caring about public education at a crucial time when educators in public schools are being attacked. Before we begin, I would like to say that I am very proud to be a Best AFT union leader. Best does not meddle in local compadre politics. We take our work seriously, and we only endorse political positions that deal with education. We also follow the friendly incumbency rule, meaning these endorsed candidates have listened and voted for interests on many issues that concern certified and classified employees. And I will let Mr. Jasso ask the first question.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jorge Jasso, and I'm a co-PAC chair. I will now introduce our Best AFT endorsed candidates. BISD Board Trustee Drew Brown. Denise R. Garza, and Dr. Pressy Roca-Tipton. For tonight's forum, each candidate will have up to 3 minutes to answer the questions. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and tell us about your proudest first-term achievement and what your goals and priorities are for your second term. We will begin with Ms. Brown.
I was pretty sure I'd be first. Thank you for this opportunity tonight. I feel like I know a lot of you. We've gotten to know each other over the last 4 years. Just to introduce myself a little bit, there may be something you don't know about me. I don't know if you're aware, I was a long-term teacher here in BISD. I taught at Falk Middle School and at Hannah High School and also at Olivetta Middle School. And I'm very proud of the time that I was an English teacher in those schools. I wasn't born and raised in Brownsville. I grew up in Fort Worth, but I like to say after college, I got here as fast as I could. And I've never left. I love this community. I love this school district, and it's been home to me for a very long time. I went on in my career and I moved into, I held several jobs where I was actually a teacher, but I was also doing administrative coordinating type activities. And eventually for the last 25, 26 years of my career, I was the public information officer for Brownsville ISD, something I was very, very proud of. Brownsville's a top 20 district in the state, and to have the opportunity to talk every day about the amazing things that were going on in this school district was a real source of pride to me, because every day, every single day, there were all kinds of amazing things going on, and we had a lot of opportunity to promote those things, like last night at the board meeting, we had a great number. Very quickly, because I see I've only got 30 seconds, I think that the thing I'm most proud of in the last 4 years was our response to the pandemic. The pandemic threw everybody for a loop, but it was amazing the response that the district had in terms of vaccinations, in terms of testing, and in terms of providing food for all our students and continuing everyone's employment through a very, very difficult time. Oh, perfect.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Ms. Denise?
Hello, my name is Denise Garza. I have 20 years of experience working in public education, 16 with BISD. I was a special ed clerk along with doing PEIMS as well. And then the last 4 years were done in San Benito School District in the special education department, auditing the special ed art paperwork. I'm very happy to have continue working for our BISD students, parents, and staff. And I look forward to continuing to move our teacher pays and our classified employee hourly rates. One of the most important things I think that we did as a board was that we guaranteed our bus drivers the 40 hours a week that was taken away from them a few years back. Another thing was we brought our teacher salaries closer to market value. We raised classified starting pay to $15 an hour, so no one makes less than $15 anymore, which we are continuing to move forward to look at all the compression that is currently between our longevity employees with our new employees. Also, we updated stipends that had not been updated in years, and that is still something we're going to continue looking at because we understand that there is a shortage in educators, and we're going to continue recruiting the best educators for the best district. Another thing that we're very proud of, or I'm very proud of, is that higher education. We graduated 300 students with an associate's this year through TSC. And we continue to raise those numbers. So very proud that we get to save those parents 2 years of college. So another thing was we created a special education 504 committee meeting, and we continue to work on the needs of our special ed students, our special ed staff, making sure they have all the resources that they need to continue providing our students with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Denise. And Dr. Tipton?
Yes.
I'll be asking the next question. And this question is for Dr. Tipton. Best AFT is advocating for the teacher contract to return to a 187-day contract instead of the current 10-month contract. Teachers are the only employees who do not have a number of days worked in the compensation plan. Will you support us in this endeavor, and how would you help us accomplish it?
As well, and I think that it's a working.
Sorry, go ahead and make sure you unmute.
Okay, I think that this has been an issue that has been on our list, of to do things. And I think that there has been a lot of other pressing issues that had been, presented to us, such as, the teacher raises and the closing of the gaps and the healthcare cost and the seniority policy. And definitely this has been one of the items that has been on our list. And so we look forward to working with the union leaders and to seeing how we can move forward on the policy, on the new contract for the teachers. Thank you.
And this next question, well, it's the same question, and I can repeat it again. For Drew Garza. Denise Garza.
Okay, so as Dr. Tipton had mentioned, this has been brought to our attention. It is definitely on our radar. We have I know I have a list of things, along with also my colleagues. We have a list of things that we need to do, and we're definitely looking to see how we can come to meet in the middle to come up with a contract, a 187 contract for our district staff, our teachers.
And Mr. Brown.
Having been a teacher, I can certainly see that it would be more beneficial if the contract was the way it used to be, which was the number of days. So I wouldn't have a problem with that. But like my colleagues have said, there were a lot of things that came forward on our plate. And I think, I remember when I first got on the board, insurance was quite an issue that we had to address. And those seemed to be more pressing items at the time, the salaries and things like that. But when we talk about lists, we truly do have lists. We will compare what's on your list as opposed to what's on my list. We hear from y'all, and we hear from different ones of y'all, and you will bring forward an idea and I'll put it on my list and have you heard about this or that? So we talk quite often. And I think you well know that in the last few years, we've spent a lot of time trying to work with y'all. And it's not all going to happen at once. It's going to take time, but that is definitely something I think could be addressed.
Thank you. This next question goes to Ms. Denise. Best AFT advocates for mediation as a way to resolve issues without fighting a grievance. Current policy states that neither side has to accept the mediator's recommendations. What are your thoughts on either changing that language to make it binding, or should we move towards arbitration?
Well, I know that this has been an issue that our district has had through our grievances, and I think it's been a work in progress. I know our grievances, we're hearing them as quickly as possible, but if we can nip it before it gets to a level 3 grievance, I'm all for it, to meeting our staff, our administrators, whoever is the one filing the grievance, to take care of that issue right from when it begins, before it gets to that level 3 grievance, because I'm all for our district staff taking care of our employees before it has to get to us as a board. So I will definitely continue looking at the grievance process with the mediators in the beginning, and continue looking for contracted people to come in and work with our staff so that we can lower the grievance that we have currently in our district.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
I know that we all supported having mediators, and but I don't think the process is working as well as it could yet. it's better, but there, like you say, it's not binding. There's some hiccups to it. And I think it's kind of in its infancy, and it's something that definitely needs to be smoothed out and made much more, it just needs to flow better than it does, because I like very much the idea of mediators. And in the few experiences, I think so far it's worked out, but it could be a better process. And it's definitely something I think we'd all agree needs to be improved. And I'm in favor of that.
Thank you. Dr. Tipton?
Yes, certainly. I also agree with my colleagues. I think that when we first brought this up, I think that the hiccups were that nobody was never really listening to the fact that we needed to have mediation before it actually got to the other level. So we were able to get to that, jump that hurdle, and we were able to actually include that within the process. Is there room for improvement? Always. Everything that we do, and every item, every policy, everything that we probably do within the district, every action, there's always going to be room for improvement. I acknowledge that, right? And so I'm looking forward to working and hearing now and seeing what has worked and what hasn't worked, so that way we can improve. Thank you.
Currently, BISD has a hiring schedule for teachers and librarians and uses midpoint for other certified and all classified salaries. Employees have no idea on what their salaries are and how they are determined. Would you be in favor of all employees being placed on a salary step schedule? And how would you go about it? And this question is for Ms. Brown first.
One quick thing about mediators too, before I jump to this next one. The whole purpose of bringing mediators in was to eliminate so many of the attorneys and to make this a friendlier process where we could work problems out without a lot of attorneys in the room. And I think that's what we've all wanted. On the salary issues, when I ran, and also Dr. Tipton, one of the things that we really stressed in this room at a forum one day was that we wanted to bring TASB in to try to bring our people up to market value. It's not quite where it needs to be yet, but it's been a better process. And I know at the time it was a lot of change for everyone. But in my experience as a BISD employee, when we would get raises, we'd hear, oh, we're going to get 2% of midpoint or this or that. But what we didn't know is that we were using old midpoints that hadn't been increased in many years. And I strongly support the TASB model and what we've been able to bring in. I think that we are at the point now where we're constantly modifying and looking at the TASB model to increase. And I like the idea of our librarians in BISD are being paid comparable to librarians, say, in Dallas or Plano. I don't want models that are based just on the Valley, because at one point that's what was done. It was just the models based on, and not even the Valley sometimes, the local districts, just our neighboring districts. I support scales that are based on state averages, a market value across the state for each specific position. And we're getting to that point. In some of our cases now, we're 80% of midpoint, 90% of midpoint, or 90% of market value, things like that. And there was just a lot of games played with salaries. And I do like the idea that TASB works with districts across the state and that we're lining up with those other districts. And I'm not quite sure this is the answer y'all are looking for, but this is how I feel. I think that we need, it's not something we can fix ourselves. It's not something you can fix or we can fix by ourselves. We do need to bring in people that understand salaries across the state so that we become competitive and comparable to everybody in the state. And so that's what I support.
And Dr. Tipton, same question. Yes.
Teachers, correct? That's what, yeah, that question for the teachers and librarians. So definitely, when I first came on the board, And I want to say even now, because, we still have a lot of work to do. We still have gaps to close. It was very difficult for anybody, to open up that salary book and to know what they were going to get paid. And even today, it's still confusing, right? And so I believe that one of the goals that we have to do for this next budget cycle, right? Because I know that we have already, we worked on closing those gaps, on all of those anomalies, because they were many of them. They were teachers who were at 15 years, same years of experience, who were just, their pay was just, there was a difference in pay of thousands of dollars. Why that happened or how that happened, we don't know. But I believe that the solution is just that, is if we could create a scale or a table that has years of experience along with, the teacher's years with their salary. Thank you.
So 2 years ago, when I came in, I knew TASB had come in and did a market study on all our employees, classified and certified. And there was a few discrepancies because many times people were telling us, we want to go back to the old scale. We want to go back to the old scale. But that was a scale that was not even comparable to what the living salary was current at that moment. So I understand we want to go through a scale, but I am more focused on making sure that our teachers are at market value with any other teacher in the state of Texas. That way they know that if they come to BISD, they're not going to be losing any money, whether they're in Harlingen, Los Fresnos, or even San Antonio, that they're going to come to us, making a comparable amount to what they're making at their current district. And I will continue seeing if we can do more TASB studies on our current salaries, because I know the scale that we have currently on the compensation plan is mainly for new teachers coming into our district with either 0 years of experience or 10 years of experience. So we're working with HR and making sure that when a teacher calls or any employee calls HR, and they do the formula, that they're given the accurate amount with a current breakdown of what they're making along with their stipends. So that is something I know that I am going to be focused on. And I know along with my other colleagues, we have discussed it, even if it's a formula that is going to be placed on our website so that the teachers understand exactly what they are making instead of getting the runaround or different salaries, because I know that's been an issue where they call HR and they get told, oh, you're going to be making this amount. This is where you're at. Or no, you're not at midpoint when they talk to another HR specialist. So that is my focus, is to make sure that, yes, we follow a scale, but yet I want to make sure our teachers are at their market value and appreciated for all that they do, because we understand that teachers are not paid what they deserve. And we're going to continue fighting with our state legislators and our state representatives to be the voice for us down here in BISD.
Okay, this next one is actually a follow-up question. And this one will be for Ms. Garza. Do you believe employees should get a step increase each year? Why or why not?
As a family that comes from educators, I do believe that we should do a step increase for our teachers and staff. That is the only way we're going to continue retaining our staff and promoting our teachers that are coming out from UTRGV into the education profession. Many times I know when they go to the private sector, they know that there's always going to be a salary increase based on their step that they're in. So I want to say I do support the step increase for all our district staff, because there was times that they were forgotten and they were just, every year they were still making the same amount of money that they would make 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So I do support the step increase for all staff.
And same question.
A step increase. However, for me, that would just be a minimum, right? So we just need to be careful when we support the step increase, that we continue, right, to work on a market study, continue to challenge administration for marketable wages, to make sure that, we continue to close the gaps, that we don't fall off the cliff like we did, these last 10 years, right? Because it took us, although it took us almost 4 years to almost close the gap, we don't want to be in the same position again, because, us, like Ms. Garza said, us being, just dependent on that step increase, because I think that should just be support, market study, continue to advocate for marketable wages, continue to compare teacher salaries, librarian salaries, nurses salaries with districts that are comparable in size and within market. Who would have known after pandemic, our nurses, they're more in demand. So maybe their salaries and their step increase is not going to be comparable to what is actually within that step increase. So we just need to, as long as we just work together and we are conscious, we have a mutual conscience with, administration and with our employees, that the employee knows, our teachers know that is just the minimum that we are expecting. Thank you.
I'm glad to answer this question. I'm glad you asked it. For as long as I can remember, we had step increases, but somewhere along the line, they disappeared. That's how we got in trouble. That's why we're in trouble today. That's how we found out that we have the lowest paid teachers in the Valley. And there's not anybody at this table that was willing to accept that this year. And I think you all know how we feel. And there were all these ways that it was done. I remember sitting in the meetings year after year, because I brought the press release about the raise that we were going to give that year. And we'd be talking about the rich benefit package or the lower cost of living in the Valley. And we had all these ways that we justified the salaries that we were paying. Well, none of that works anymore. But I think doing away with the step increase was really the first step to what brought us to the place we're at today. I don't know how we're going to get it back in. We're going to have to look for some way, but there's just some level of comfort for all of us when you know that every year there's going to be this 700 or 800 amount, no matter what, and you're going to see it on the scale. And that's how we're going to get our salaries back up. Because even now, and it was hard this year to get the raises we got, but even now, we're not at the top of the Valley. I think we're kind of lower towards the lower end. And none of us are happy about that. And so part of that is exactly what these ladies said: market value, TASB, and also bringing back the step increase.
Thank you. So far, all three safety meetings, there has been a strong emphasis on law enforcement and an increase of it on all campuses. Best AFT supports this, but is also concerned that the social emotional component is not being fully addressed. We support the Sandy Hook Promise Project and all of its components where all students and staff can be involved. The district has indicated that they are addressing one portion of it. We have talked to several counselors who either have not been trained or are unaware of their role. What are your thoughts on addressing the social emotional needs of our students, and specifically the Sandy Hook Project? We'll begin with Dr. Tipton.
First of all, I want to say that, not just because of education, being involved in higher education and being my 21st year, but the first order of the day, and I've always said this, has to be the safety of our children and our teachers and our staff and ourselves, right? If we don't feel safe, it impacts student achievement. So that's very important. And I think, even pre-pandemic or post-pandemic, there's so many different wounded students, what they actually call. We can see the physical part of the student or the staff or anyone that is wounded, but we don't see that social emotional side. So it's very important for us to not only maybe embrace the Sandy Hook and the strategies and all the good things that the Sandy Hook project has, but I think that we can also look beyond that, right? And we can look at current research of what's that's informing us post-pandemic. So I think it's important. I definitely support, the more we have, the merrier, right? And so I think that every aspect that we can touch on to ensure that we touch on the social and emotional learning, best practices that cover that particular piece, I definitely support this item or this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. Ms. Garza?
Yes, as the chairperson for the Safety and the Mental Health Committee, I support the Sandy Hook Promise. Right before school started, I had several parents reach out to me that their child was feeling stressed, anxious, because they kept on hearing about everything that had happened in Uvalde. And I reached out to some of those campuses and the counselors, and they were able to sit down and talk to these children. And I want to say that, yes, safety is our top priority, but so is the mental health and the well-being to every child, along with our staff members, because we do know that law enforcement, as well as it's changing in the education setting, they have so many things that they need to follow, and we need to make sure that we also take care of our police officers, that they're okay every day as they go out there and protect our students and our staff, because at that moment they are the frontline men who are going to go in there. But Sandy Hook Promise, I did see a glimpse of it, and it's something that I think our district definitely needs to consider, putting it out more, because it is the reality of the world that we are living in today. So I support this project.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
First off, I think we're very fortunate in Brownsville because many years ago, the district committed to having a top-notch police and security services department. It's hard to believe, a lot of districts don't have what we have, and we have stellar people that are out there, and it's a different kind of policing to police students in schools, and we're very fortunate to have what we have. I've spent some time looking at the Sandy Hook Promise program. I like it. I don't see any other program that I like as well. And I did bring it up at one of our meetings, and our head counselor said that they definitely were implementing some elements of it, but I still think there's more that can be done. What worries me is that with the way we're having to make our schools a little leaner, a little meaner, that our counselors may not have the time they need to implement, or the teachers to implement some of the things that are involved in the Sandy Hook Promise. And we're going to have to make it a priority. We're going to have to emphasize it. We've got to have an emphasis on the mental situations with our students. We've got to be able to identify troubled students. We've got to be able to act on it and hopefully mitigate situations so that we never have an Uvalde here in our community. And I would like to see more emphasis. I know this organization is very committed to Sandy Hook. I know Patrick's brought it up several times. We're going to have to push it a little bit more because the district's embracing it, but there needs to be more embracing of this program. And I think it's a good question for us. We need to commit to it. And if we don't commit to that, then we need to commit to something similar, because we don't have anything, we don't have a full commitment right now.
Next question. Is there a consequence for administrators who violate policy? What should the consequence be? Teachers have to sign a form at the beginning of each school year stating that they are aware of all district policies. Do administrators have to sign the same form? And should they be required to do so? And this question goes to Denise Garza first.
So the 2 years that I have been on this seat, we have noticed sometimes where administration has violated policy. It is very upsetting when we hold our teachers to a high standard, yet the leader on that campus continues to violate certain policies. I know that we have spoken to our superintendent, after grievances that we had, after complaints that we had, and we started telling him that we needed to start holding our administrators more accountable, just as we hold our teachers accountable. because they are the leaders to that campus. And if a principal is violating policy, then campus staff thinks that they can violate it as well and nothing will happen. I am for looking into, depending on the policy that was violated, seeing how we would take care of that situation at that moment. But I do feel, yes, our administrators need to be held more accountable for what they're doing, because violation of policy is unacceptable in any profession, and especially here in education. So that is something based, like I have said, that, depending on the violation of policy, we would look into how we would handle the discipline on that administrator.
Mr. Brown.
Everybody needs to be held accountable. I mean, regardless of your position, we hold everyone accountable. And I do know, sometimes we all know situations where there's been a directive given, or there's been something that's been put out, and yet not everyone responds in the same way, and there has to be accountability. I think it could be tightened up. I think that teachers are held to a greater standard sometimes, and we have to ensure that everybody's held to the same standards of accountability. And if not, there have to be a standard of repercussions for those actions. So we need to be consistent, we need to be fair, and everyone needs to be held to the same standards.
And Dr.
Can you repeat the question only because
Is there a consequence for administrators who violate policy? What should the consequence be? Teachers have to sign a form at the beginning of each school year stating that they are aware of all these policies. Do administrators have to sign the same form, and should they be required to do so?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I didn't, that form that you're talking about that teachers have to sign, I didn't know it was just for teachers. I mean, I think when, it was brought up to me, I actually have already, asked this question, because everyone should sign that form and everybody should be held accountable. And, that's pretty much, it's in black and white, and if it's not been done, then it needs to happen even before the school year. And thank you.
BISD teachers have been inundated with excessive, repetitive, and redundant paperwork demands, from data cards, uploading elevation, and detailed lesson plans. There has been a significant micromanagement of teacher duties by the current administration. What can you do to assist our teachers in decreasing this micromanagement by administration and excessive paperwork demand? And the question goes to Thank you, Ms. Garza.
Yes, last night at our board meeting, we had been hearing about lesson plans, forethought. We had not actually been able to see what an actual lesson plan looked like currently now. So one of the public comments gave us a sample, and we saw how detailed a lesson plan currently looks like. And that was just for one day. And I know that they put it in one program, but yet it's in another program. So I do support having to not duplicate so much paperwork for our teachers as it is. We're barely 5 weeks into school, and I continue hearing, we're burnt out already. We're burnt out. We need a vacation. And that's the last thing I want, is for any of our employees to feel burnt out so early in the school year. So I know that we're looking at other ways to see how we can help our teachers to reduce that duplicated paperwork that's constantly being, because one principal says that this format works better for them, but no, I think we need to work together to do one thing for the entire district. That way there's not duplication in anything that our teachers do. So I do support reducing or helping out our teachers, so they will be less stressed out with all this paperwork that's being asked of them.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
I think one of the unique duties of the school board is that we are charged with ensuring that there's not a huge amount of paperwork. That actually is something that we're supposed to do. And I think what your role and what you help us with a lot of times, since we're a team, is you bring your concerns, and we don't always know. We don't always know. It wasn't, what was it, last year when we finally saw a demonstration of what you were telling us about elevation. And once we sat there and we heard from the administrator at the time what that truly entailed, the scanning of these essays and keeping a file and all that, we were able to take action. And this year we still have elevation, but that component of elevation has been eliminated now. There was no purpose to it. And last night, we had, I think, one of your members provide us with what's happening with the lesson plans, and all of us studied it. We even discussed it a bit in executive last night. I was a teacher for a long time. I just don't see the purpose of all that. I don't see how that's going to enhance the classroom. Planning, yes, planning is important, but trying to tie all those pieces together, I just don't, that time spent on that could be better spent for you people. And thank you for actually showing us now what it looks like, because we've been hearing, but it's one thing to hear, and I had not actually seen what that looked like, but it's very cumbersome, and we are asking questions about it. That's what is good about us working with you, because you bring things to us that show us. I mean, we don't know everything. We don't always know the situation. Lesson plans look much different than they did when I was a teacher, when we've all been in the classroom. So it's important that we share that responsibility and you make us aware of those situations. And I thank you. We were able to handle elevation, make that a little bit more manageable. I think this is the next step. Paperwork reduction is one of my personal goals this year.
Thank you.
You have all worked closely with Best AFT on salary, policy, transfers, reassignments, excess staffing lists, facility concerns, and many more issues. You have met with our leaders and you have attended our monthly member meetings to answer questions and address concerns. What are your thoughts on our collaborative efforts, our union, and how do you see our relationship going forward? And this question goes to Ms. Brown first.
Well, I think you all know that I was a member of several organizations when I was a teacher, and I'm a big advocate for organizations. I think professional organizations are extremely important. Every profession has their professional organizations to advocate, to enlighten, to teach, to educate. There's a whole role, and you've been good with us. I mean, I really enjoy the interaction we have with your organization. You're always professional, always, when you present at the board meetings. You're always professional in what you tell us, And I have never felt that any of the members in this organization function from anything but wanting what's best for our children, wanting what's best for our employees, our parents, our community. I've come to know many of you in this organization, and I hold you in high regard. I think you do it right. I think you've been a guide for some of the other organizations, and I think you fit the role of what an educational organization should do in the way that you interact with us, the way you interact with administration. It's not always going to be perfect. We're not always going to see things the same way, but it's always collegial. It's always professional. And I have great respect for you. The organization and each of you individually, I think Patrick Hemis sets a good standard. And I think you do. I think you're the best.
Thank you. And Dr.
Is very briefly in our last meeting that I have enjoyed learning from you all. I know that I think I had mentioned, we have cried together. we have laughed together, and it has been a great 4 years. I feel like I have now the best family. And I appreciate everything that you all have, the time, and always, and for trusting in reaching out to us. I know that it's very difficult. I know that everyone is afraid sometimes of retaliation, and I am very happy that you all entrusted that, in me, and always calling me, trusting that you all could share your most, confidential information, and that we wouldn't share your names. But I think that you all have treated us with respect. I have enjoyed my long talks with Mercy, our long nights, with many of you all here, with Mr. Hams. And I am just so happy that we're just a text away, now. And so thank you all very much. And I look forward to 4 more years of us working and using this collaborative approach between the unions and the school board. I think it definitely works. Thank you.
As a former BISD employee, I was not part of the union, and I really, when I once needed help, I did reach out to board members. I remember I gave them a lengthy email. I heard from no one. My email was ignored. But you know what? It was fine. And when I decided to run 2 years ago, I made sure that I would not ignore anybody's email or phone calls. So now that I'm here 2 years later, I really appreciate the collaborative work that we do with your association. It's opened my eyes because you all do have a voice out there. And Mr. Hammes brings us our agendas when we have our monthly meetings, and everything is, we go down the agenda and we get things going and we work on it together. Not many other organizations can say that they meet with board members as often as BEST does with us. And if I'm elected for 4 more years, I will continue collaborating with any organization, but do know that with this organization, we meet once a month and all your concerns are listened to. And I would never want any other employee to feel the way I felt when I was a BISD employee and needed a concern addressed and they ignored it. I never want anybody to feel like that, not even our parents or our students, because I was able to work with some students over the summer with some concerns, and they were so appreciative that an adult listened to them. So I support our organizations, and I look forward to working with you all for 4 more years.
Best AFT is already on record in asking for a reading academy stipend for all teachers that be given retroactively to those who have completed it. What are your thoughts on providing a comparative stipend to what other districts are given? This question goes to Ms. Garza.
So the reading academies, I know it's something that we have been asked about, giving a stipend or some type of incentive for it. I know that's something that we can look into through our budget committee. Budget never ends. Even though we adopt our budget in June, we continue working on what we were not able to include in budget. And this is something I will look into. Currently, I have an aunt that works in Victoria CISD, and she's a retired rehired. And 2 weeks ago, I got to visit with her, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, Denise, I'm getting paid for these reading academies. I don't want to do these reading academies." She goes, so I got to see firsthand what the reading academy looked like with her. And I was like, wow, this is very time consuming. The modules are insane. So right now, our district currently does not pay for the reading academies, but after seeing what my aunt in another district 4 hours away from here is going through, that now she's really considering, I'm going to call it quits. I don't want to do this. So I want to help out our teachers and see if we can implement this, a stipend for in our budget for this current school year to help out our teachers, because it is very time consuming. I sat down with her, and one module can literally take up half a day or even a whole entire day. And the one thing I want is for our teachers to be able to enjoy their family time during their weekend with their families.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
I've had a couple of friends talk to me about the Reading Academy, and I think one of them kind of encapsulated how difficult it is. And she said, Drew, it's basically like getting a master's. It's like you're working on getting another master's. And when she put it that way, it really kind of crystallized what this thing is. And I was speaking to the superintendent about this just a few days ago, and he was saying that, and I'm not saying that we don't need to make a local effort, but I think there is some noise being made at the state level too, in terms of looking at some way to pay people to get this requirement, and also hopefully to reimburse those who have already gone and done this work. So I think it's still something that's on the table. That's either going to be handled at the state level or it's going to be handled locally. But it's a huge responsibility, a huge amount of work, and it's just another layer of all these things that we put on our teachers to do. So definitely we're looking at it. We need to see what we can do. And if the state doesn't do something, we're going to have to do something.
Thank you. Dr. Tipton?
Yes, thank you. I think that, first of all, reading is not only important for all our students, but it's actually one of the board goals, you know? And I know that, you know, I had mentioned earlier that we had so many different needs, especially post-pandemic, so many in-demand positions or salaries that we needed to fill in, that the reading stipend for the academies was definitely there. So we listened to everyone. We listened to the concerns. I've sat down with some of my some of my friends who are teachers, and we've gone through the actual modules, everything that they've had to do. And Ms. Brown is correct. It is very, you know, it is horrific, right? What our teachers have to go through on top of everything else. So we need to link a stipend to this board goal and to the reading academies. And it's something that I definitely support, something that we should explore for this next coming year. And I think that should stay on our radar. Regretfully, it didn't make it during this budget adoption, but like Ms. Garza said, it's an ongoing process. The budget never really stops. We continue to evaluate every single anomaly that may have occurred during the actual budget process, and we continue to work together. And hopefully this year we can come to some solution whether it's at the state level or whether it's a local effort to reimburse our teachers for their hard work. Thank you.
At this time, we will now move on to the closing statement section. Each candidate will get 3 minutes to make their statement. We will begin with Dr. Tipton.
Thank you all very much for having us here. And I am honored to be supported, to get the support or the endorsement from Best Union. And I want to thank Mr. Hams, all their leaders for having us here. And some of my goals for this next year, or for this next 4 years, will definitely be to continue to close the gap on our teacher raises. So we need to close the gap. We need to continue to look at the market. And the goal is for us to be the #1 paying school district in the Rio Grande Valley. I think that it's been long overdue that we had been the last paid school district. The other item is also to ensure that we continue to work that we do not increase the healthcare costs for our teachers. We didn't do it for the first 4 years, and it is going to be one of the goals is to not have any increase in our healthcare costs for our teachers. Definitely work on the redundancy of paperwork and the stipends for the teacher academies, and improve our process for the mediation. Yes. I have a whole list of goals that we want to do, but these are some of my magical moments, right, that we want to foresee in the future. And definitely work on getting our students and meeting their social and emotional needs, and to ensure that they feel safe in our schools, and not only them, but also their families. So thank you.
Ms. Garza?
Hi, yes. I'd like to thank Best AFT for having us here today. And I want to also thank you for the endorsement. For the next 4 years, I want to say I'm going to continue focusing on the increase of certified and classified staff, additional fine arts programs, because we do know that extracurricular activities helps our students with a social and emotional well-being. You know, many of them suffer from anxiety, and they use these activities as a form as therapy for them. So that is one thing I'm going to continue looking into. Equity in our athletic departments, because right now we do see that there is some discrepancies with different sports. So we want to make sure that everybody is equal. Continuing to recruit our classified and certified staff. So whatever way we can, if you all have ideas, I'm willing to listen to you all. We got to continue recruiting educators, because these children are our future. And 504 and special education. We do know that our special education numbers have continued to go up. And even though we're closing the gaps, you know, our kids went through a lot. And I want to make sure that our special ed teachers, our dyslexia teachers, our diagnosticians, our speech, all of our personnel that work in those departments, that we help them and we provide them with the resources to continue providing these students with the best quality education. And safety is a priority that we will not stop. And it's also up there on our radar. So those are just a few of my goals that I want to continue working on. As the year goes by, I add on more goals, but I am always here for you all. And if it's a new goal that I need to add to my list, I will add it to my list so we continue moving our district forward.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Well, Denise is right. Those lists keep going, and we'll keep adding. But my list has the very first thing is really, it's not a particular order, but I would like to increase the respect of our employees. We need to value and respect our employees more than we do. And I think that would go a long way to improving a lot of the other things that we need to improve. I would like very much to work this year on substitute pay when we get into our compensation time again when we start looking at budgets. I've asked already for a report on where we stand valley-wide. I put as a board member request. I want to know where we stand valley-wide in terms of all our subs, especially our certified subs, who are, in a lot of cases, we have retired teachers that are in the classroom right now. They're doing all the work of a teacher, and they're not making, I don't think, adequate compensation. Paperwork reduction, which is a board duty. I want to see if we can do, we've been talking a lot about paperwork lately, and it's something that's ongoing, but there's some obvious areas where we need to improve it. I want to continue, and we all want to. Okay, time out. Yeah, we all want to see compensation brought to market value. We want our employees to be paid adequately. We want them to be paid competitively and be right in line with any employee in the state in a school district. I'd also like to improve the mediation process. I don't think it's where it needs to be. It's an employee's right to grieve, and I have not always felt that we give them the respect. It takes a lot for an employee to grieve. I know that. And we need to maybe drop the aggressive attitude and work a little bit more and make it a friendlier, more professional process, and maybe less lawyers, less attorneys, and see what we can do to come to conclusions without it being such an aggressive thing. The other thing I hope that we can work on is we need to work with our state and federal entities to improve. I mean, the pandemic brought us a lot of money, $185 million. Unfortunately, there was a lot of restrictions on that money, but it shouldn't take a pandemic to get the kind of money we need down here for our schools. And we're going to have to keep advocating and keep pushing. We just need more money. We need to be equal to the schools in other parts of the state. We need to get the same benefits as the charters, and we need to keep pushing for that. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today, and please, let's give a round of applause to our best AFT candidates. Thank you all for taking the time to be here today. Thank you.